Welcome to Cordkillers. The world of entertainment is turned upside down, and we are just trying to find out how to watch what we want, where we want, whenever we want. I'm Tom Merritt. Brian, where's the good stuff?
Oh man, I don't know. How do I get surprised by that question every single time?
That we've been doing for 110 episodes now. I don't know.
I'll tell you where the good stuff is. This week it's going to be in the full experience because we're going to talk about the curious puzzle nature of 24, which we'll get to later on, but I rather enjoyed it. Spoiler.
24 is what I call it. I don't know why.
Probably, you know what? I don't know why. Yeah, why don't we go on a supply run?
It takes place in Los Angeles. Let's go to the supply run. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Supply run, supply run, supply run.
You all thought we were going to talk about the whole Warner Brothers Discovery thing, which we are, but not in the supply run because we got a branding problem. And there's only one person I ever want to talk about branding problems with, and that is Brian Brushwood. ESPN is using the slogan Sports Forever to promote its wealth of offerings. Obviously laying the groundwork for this to be used when they launch their big streaming service in the fall. But they're already starting to run these promos. They are using some of the earliest footage from the launch of ESPN in 1979. Not just early 80s Chris Berman stuff. We're talking like people you've never seen before unless you watched it back then. And leading into showing modern day streaming, watching on mobile, all of that. To show the length and breadth of ESPN's experience. You're going to hopefully want to then plunk down $30 a month for the standalone streaming service when it launches around the time of the NFL season. Joe Fox, the sports outlet's senior vice president of marketing, says they're trying to reach beyond the current fan base. The goal is to get a broad group of some of the 60 million consumers who don't subscribe to traditional TV packages, and probably some of the people who pay for ESPN now and don't watch it, to consider the new ESPN $30 a month package. Brian, does For Sports Forever work for that?
First of all, it absolutely does. I love this story partly because it plays on multi-year kind of trend forecasting. It also plays on generational pivots in branding because, first of all, when you are in a number one position, what you want to do is massage yourself into the idea that Big Brother was always your comforting savior, right? You were always, ESPN was always number one. When you and I both know ESPN was very, very fringy back in the day, right? But now they are in the pole position. And so now is the time to assert that kind of Coca-Cola positioning. And Forever, launched in 1979, means to me, in my lifetime, I have no memory from before 4 years old. It has been forever, which is excellent aligned positioning. Also, in that ad, did you watch the launch ad or the teaser ad for an ad for the ad campaign, basically? Yeah. They did one very, very clever thing. They showed an anchoring of, I think somebody was getting a tattoo of Buffalo Bills logo, and it said the word forever. And I thought that was brilliant co-alignment on, because people swear their undying fealty to various, tribal allegiances within sports world. And so to borrow that or to use a commonly used word from their world, I think is very good. Next up, the other thing I like about this is forever means it implies the long shadow of their catalog of content. And again, I'm going to guess that when you think of all your favorite sports memories, you probably don't have a terribly strong memory. You have a strong memory of the sports event or moment or where you were. You probably don't have a terribly strong memory about what network you happen to be watching. And so by sort of implying vaguely that all of your forever sports memories, all of your best times, all of your most powerful moments, ESPN was around. We're not going to say there, but they were around during all of it, I think is really, really good. It also provides, for my money, if you want to reach out to non-hardcore sports fans, First, I'll keep it short. Short Galaxy Brain, Brian, and then I'll toss it to you, Tom. Sports is very much a present tense verb, right? It's present and future. If you're watching the game is on right now. If you are watching sports channels any other time of the day, it is all future tense. It is a bunch of talking heads speculating. Maybe they're recapping what happened yesterday, but it's very short-term memory. But they're mostly speculating about what's coming up ahead. This campaign means they get to dip into, for my money, the more powerful, fertile territory of your 30 for 30 historical stories. Those 30 for 30 documentaries, the ones I've seen have been extraordinary, whether it's the one all about all the sports events that happened on the day O.J. Simpson went on his slow chase, or the generation of fantasy baseball. There's so much more where that came from. And then I'll just put a little spice for you to play with here on top, Tom. I wonder if in this age of kind of looking backwards, let's call it sports retrofuturism, I wouldn't be surprised if, as part of rights negotiations or whatever, a lot of ancient early footage could be, because of LLMs, made rich and vibrant in a way better than the game itself was, better than being there at the game. Imagine seeing, imagine the first Super Bowl getting the get back treatment. That's the kind of thing they open with this campaign. I hit you with a lot. Which of those do you like the most?
Yeah, I really like, that idea that you talked about, ESPN implying that it's always been there, even though we know it hasn't been, because you might remember the person who made the call. Like, I think a great one is Kirk Gibson hit a home run to help the Dodgers come back. He was injured. He limped up to the plate. Everyone made comparisons to like, oh my gosh, it's like the plot of the movie The Natural in real life. And you always hear Jack Buck say, I don't believe what I just saw, when they play the TV footage of Kirk Gibson hitting that home run. The best part about that for me is that Jack Buck was doing the radio call for that.
Oh, that's
not
amazing.
The TV call. Vin Scully did the TV call, and it's a great call. Vin Scully was a genius, but it was so iconic that I don't believe what I just saw, that they just were like, we're going to Mandela effect everyone and make it sound like that was the TV call. And that's true. I was like, everyone just associates sports with watching, not where I watched. And to get back to what you had said, ESPN means sports. When you think of sports as a sports fan, you think of ESPN, because even if you're not watching the game on ESPN, you're watching it recapped on SportsCenter. You're watching them talking about it on an ESPN talk show, and all sports are represented on ESPN. The best magic trick they did out of this, and I wonder if this is why they decided to actually go with 1979, is you see someone you've never seen before. He's not celebrated in ESPN lore anymore, saying, "Welcome to sports heaven." In 1979, maybe that was true because sports was harder to find on TV, but ESPN was far from sports heaven, when they were showing Australian rules football and pool and whatever they could get their hands on.
It's sports heaven because ESPN is where sports went to die.
Right? And they made that true. They're basically saying, back then we told you we were sports heaven. Now we are, no one doubts it. And so when we're telling you to try something new where you're like, I don't know about this streaming thing, trust us. We told you it was sports heaven in 1979. We're going to have sports heaven on streaming. You're going to love it. Don't doubt us anymore. And I think that's a nice little subtle thing in here where ESPN is basically trying to identify themselves with sports by saying sports forever. Also, that means ESPN forever.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I just realized that my mic was low. I'm going to keep turning it up until Amos, can you let me know if this sounds good? And meanwhile, enjoy this peek behind the technical curtain, everybody listening to this after the fact. Yeah,
It's actually a little too high.
Oh, what? I never get that. Oh, maybe that's a clue on our ongoing challenge.
It was fine beforehand, and now it's too high.
Oh, wow. Okay. Maybe it was always too high. Interesting. The drama deepens. Cordkillers forever. Well, and actually, you know what? That's actually not a bad tie-in because there is value in those kind of meta narratives. And when you're younger, you don't see any of that. But you know, seasons come and go. For us old hands, you notice it a little bit more. What do you think? There's anything to bring in old sporting events back to life, or is the fact that they're part of the historical record, like, is that going to be consigned to narrative-based stories?
I don't know that is necessarily essential to the Sports Forever campaign to be able to do. And in fact, given the current rhetoric around AI and just the fact that a lot of people are mad that they have to move to streaming when they're just used to being on cable, it's probably too much for them to throw at people. But once you got them over there, or if you got some holdouts, being able to say, like, you can watch the Super Bowl I with the Green Bay Packers as if you are watching it on 4K HDR right now. I think that is pretty compelling if they could make that happen. I think it's a fantastic idea for them to take a crack at, and they're doing all kinds of things on ESPN that are experimental like that. So why not?
Yeah, I guess when they're throwing spaghetti at all the walls, sooner or later they're going to hit that spot. I'll be curious to see how much of an appetite there is for nostalgic looking back. Although
I think the nostalgia here is less about remember when. I think they're showing Lee Leonard from 1979. And I said he wasn't really celebrated, although he's got kind of a name if you're into ESPN history. However, what they're showing here isn't remember Lee Leonard. What they're showing is this is how old we are, right? What they want to show is look how simple that set is. Look at him wearing a yellow coat. Look how grainy this footage is. ESPN has existed for that long. You think we're going away now? Oh, heck no. We look way better now than we did back then, and we're going to look even better when we go onto streaming and start giving you that 4K recreation of old sports episodes or whatever.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because the forever tag instantly felt like a nostalgia backward facing hook, but that's entirely not, or maybe that is exactly what they wanted me to feel. But the whole purpose of it is we're not going anywhere, so you shouldn't go or you should go with us, or whatever the messaging is. It's a forward facing intent to get people to take a proactive opt-in measure.
If you want sports, you need us.
Yeah.
And honestly, I hadn't thought about that till we were working this out loud. The big complaint is I can't get sports on streaming. ESPN is trying to tell you, like, oh, you want sports forever and without having to worry about it? Here's your answer. $30 a month. You can get it now.
Yeah.
Or they will be able to get it now once they launch it.
Just $400 a year, Tom.
Don't think of it that way.
Yeah.
How much? You can't put a price on forever, Brian.
Yeah, it's apparently infinity.
Pay forever. That didn't test as well, so they went with sports instead.
Boy, $30 is a big pill to swallow.
I think what they're trying, the forever also might try to imply like an endless bounty of sports, right? Not just time-wise forever, but like sports for days. What you got plenty to choose from. You'll never have a lack of something to watch.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Certainly they're going to have exclusive games, and it'll be one of those things where it's like, let's say it's a Super Bowl type thing where you're going to have the party and you're going to have to get the service for it. What else besides games could they really put behind the paywall?
Well, I mean, they'll have the games. I think one of the big compelling things, one of the reasons I like ESPN Plus, to be honest, is it packages in multiple league passes. So if I am a cable subscriber, I get whatever they put on those 4 to 6 channels that they offer me from ESPN. If I'm an ESPN Plus subscriber, I get every NHL game. I get I used to get every CFL game. They don't do that one anymore, but I get every tennis match from certain circuits. I get a racing. I get, from minor circuits. It's a bunch of college stuff that is not on the air. It's niche stuff, but it's enough that somebody's going to have their niche filled, right? They're going to be like, oh, that's on the streaming package. And so, yes, I want to pay $30 a month to get baseball, NBA, the major NHL games. But then also, when I'm not interested in the game ESPN has, they will have a game in that ESPN Plus extended package that I might be interested in. And I can watch SportsCenter on demand whenever I'm ready to catch up on the latest news. I can watch the talk show about the league that I'm most interested in to get the opinions and all of that, the way people are listening to us for Cordkillers. So that's, I think, the biggest stuff behind the paywall that people care about. Yeah, they're going to have the 30 for 30 library and stuff like that. That's a nice add-on. I don't think that's what people pay the $30 for. That's a thing that makes them go, oh, I've got even more value.
Yeah, I suppose also, and they've not tipped much on the programming side of what's going to be behind the curtain, have they?
No, I mean, they've said you will get everything that's on cable, everything that's on ESPN plus all of our library content.
Well,
so,
I guess specifically what I'm wondering is, how once a year they do a little bit of ESPN the Ocho. Like, I would imagine that there's a decent sized market where there's 4 to 5 sporting events per year, but give me the dog agility course.
That's all on ESPN Plus right now.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
I'll be right back. I'm going to go spend $30.
well, the good news is they're not taking ESPN Plus away, so you really just need to pay the bundle with the Disney Plus Hulu thing for a couple bucks extra to get ESPN Plus. But that's also going to be in that $30 a month. The $30 a month is like you get everything. And ESPN has 30% of all sports already. So you're going to always have something to watch.
That's the real 30 for 30 is $30 a month for 30% of all sports.
Yeah, I think the 30 for 30, wasn't it like 30 documentaries to celebrate our 30th anniversary?
30 years, yeah.
Yeah, that was back in 2009, and now it's just become a brand. Like ESPN, the initials themselves, they don't really mean anything anymore. It's just an analogy. I think I'm not surprised that you're favorable to this, but I think it's been fun to explore the different ways that this works.
I would have to imagine that right around now, a bunch of listeners are thinking about the blind spot, something that we had tunnel vision and walked right past. Hit us up at cordkillers@gmail.com with what we missed on this.
Or you can even just post on our Patreon at patreon.com/cordkillers if you're a patron.
Now, hold on. I've been hearing about this Patreon. So you go to patreon.com/cordkillers, right?
Yep. And you just jump in your car and you drive right on over.
And what, it's $30 a month, right? That's I'm buying ESPN now.
It can be $30 a month. We're not going to tell you it shouldn't be $30 a month, but it doesn't have to be.
You know
what?
Ask yourself right now, which do you spend more time with, Cordkillers or ESPN? If it's Cordkillers, well, then maybe it sounds to me like you got $30 in your pocket.
If it's ESPN, you can still afford to give us $1.
That's true. That is true. $1 per episode. That's all we ask to keep us loud, live, and independent. Head on over to patreon.com/cordkillers. Get early access to the full experience, exclusive access to the After Talk segment, and it's spoiler-in time.
Yeah. We will do our 10 for 10 documentary. Actually, we're 11 now. So
11 for 11.
11 documentaries.
Boy, it's going to get the content workload is going to get exponential every year.
That's why we need to do it now, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the search party. When I say Noah Hawley, you say
Yes.
Fargo?
Actually, I say Legion when you say
Legion?
Noah Hawley.
Yeah,
but
okay.
Noah Hawley has an extraordinary amount of credit in the bank to Brian.
Well, he's got a new series, Brian. It's
oh,
called Alien Earth, premiering on FX and Hulu August 12th. Did you watch the trailer?
Tom, I think this is the first time this has happened. I've had times where I've told you flat out that I refuse to watch certain trailers because I'm already in. I'm already in on whatever the thing is, right? Other times I've been skeptical and gotten won and over by a trailer. That's certainly the case with Murderbot, which I'm enjoying a lot. I thought that was a very well done trailer. This is the first time halfway through a trailer I wanted to stop watching because 1 minute in, I was like, I'm in. Stop telling me anything. I don't want to know nothing about it. It seems like a fine conceit, but boy, did it just had that Noah Hawley flavor to it. It felt very more Legion-y than Fargo-y, which I was very excited about.
Yes. And if you're like, wait, so what is Alien Earth about? It's Alien Earth, if that helps. The log line is that in the year 2120, Earth is governed by 5 corporations: Prodigy, Weyland-Yutani, Lynch, Dynamic, and Threshold. And if that's not enough, Timothy Oliphant is in it as well. And yeah, Ridley Scott is involved in this. This is an Alien series.
You know, it'd be interesting because my guess is with it being Noah Hawley, he does really, really good at number one, kind of vaguely surreal, kind of gray area, what is and isn't reality, kind of upstairs in your head talk and so on. It is kind of a weird. How far out on Front Street are they putting that? That's a weird thing to shout out 5 corporations. And this is projection. This is me fantasizing. But if this was kind of Game of Thronesy with instead of great houses, it was great corporations in the future, that could be fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm making stuff up.
If you go a little farther in the log line, it says the game has changed when the founder and CEO of Prodigy Corporation unlocks hybrids, humanoid robots infused with human consciousness. The first hybrid prototype marks a new dawn in the race for immortality. After Weyland-Yutani's spaceship collides into Prodigy City, hybrids encounter mysterious life forms, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it does seem to be setting up at least 2 of these corporations are going to come at loggerheads from the beginning. And then, do we pull in the other 3 houses? I think that's
so I'd imagine, you got the damaged corporation, or probably multiple corporations have grievances against Weyland-Yutani. Weyland-Yutani, of course, we already pre-hate based on the previous Alien movies. Wouldn't it be interesting if we found ourselves sympathizing with them because they don't have the hot new hybrid? Like already, I'm making this up. I could be totally wrong, but it's Noah Hawley, so I believe in anything.
No, exactly. And that's kind of the fun thing. Also, did you finish the trailer or did you actually pause?
No, I made it through the first full 2 minutes. Yeah.
I don't think it really gave the game away either, to show us that, because we knew it was an Alien movie. So when you see things, you're like, that looks like an Alien. You're like, well, yeah, it's called Alien Earth with Ridley Scott as a producer. I could have guessed that part. I didn't see any tip-offs to the rest of the plot. So I think that's good.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I meant by that is I started to find myself concerned or thinking about actual plot story beats and whatever, and I was like, put it back in the mystery box. You'll find out.
I guess what I'm saying is, like, I think you could watch the trailer and everything's still in the mystery box.
Yes,
there's not much giveaway there. We also got a trailer for season 3 of Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, which premieres on Paramount Plus July 17th and runs through September 11th. Very much in this trailer focusing on the cast, the characters. If your window into a story is character, you're going to love this trailer. I don't know if you watched this one because I know you're not caught up.
I did. So this has been fascinating to watch from the sidelines as first out of the gates, Brave New Worlds earned a stellar reputation among hardcore Star Trek fans for being kind of a not a return to form, but just I don't know, something different. Like each season seems to have drifted into more interesting experimental territory And it is very character driven and very heartfelt. And part of that is the nostalgia framework. That set piece allows them to do it similar to how Lower Decks hit that for Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yeah, very much so.
But specifically, I got strong, almost like Doctor Who. Hey man, let's just relax. Let's have some fun adventures, which they already got away with that Lower Decks crossover that I enjoyed quite a bit.
Yeah.
So
and I think that is an element of the original series as well. That, one of the magic tricks of Strange New Worlds is making you feel like it is consistent with the original series. But yet if you do like a side-by-side comparison, they're worlds apart in that Strange New Worlds is a very modern look, very modern production, very modern storytelling. But now it is analogous to how modern the original series was when it first aired in the late 60s.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's, I keep looking forward to having those precious hours to watch it by myself.
Yes. Good luck with that someday. I think you will enjoy it. Netflix is going to make a 6-part adaptation of Pride and Prejudice because they hadn't done that. They'd done Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. But as anyone knows, every studio as a rite of passage at some point has to adapt Pride and Prejudice either as a series or a movie if you're going to do English language television at all. So here we go. Netflix is going to do one.
How familiar are you with the story on that?
Very. It's one of my favorites. I love Jane Austen. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
When I was in high school, I devoured all the Jane Austen books. I just thought they were great. I don't know why.
Interesting.
Deadline says Nick Jonas is close to striking a deal to play Paul Stanley in the shouted out loud film about Kiss.
Interesting. Yep.
Yeah, I wasn't sure where you would go with this. Jonas, of course, part of the Jonas Brothers. Paul Stanley, not Gene Simmons, if you're thinking about Kiss. So I don't know who they're going to get to play Gene
in
Simmons.
fact, So Kiss out of the gates was bombastic, over the top, wild. It's like, what if a fantasy movie were 4 guys on stage? And like, how do you mythologize a myth is what I'm wondering. And I'll be curious to see, maybe they do the reverse, make it really, really grounded. And, maybe at the very end, they discover the magic of being larger than life. I don't know.
It also implies that they're going to have the actors sing. They're not going to dub in Kiss because Nick Jonas can sing. So, and he's got some acting experience. He's more known as a singer than an actor, but he does both. So, yeah. Amazon's MGM Studios is fast-tracking a movie called Artificial about the OpenAI boardroom drama from November 2023 that saw CEO Sam Altman fired and then subsequently rehired within the weekend. Luca Guadagnino, who did Challengers and After the Hunt, is in talks to direct, and Andrew Garfield and Monica Barbaro reportedly interested in starring. They want to start shooting as early as this summer, apparently in Italy and San Francisco, according to Engadget.
I'll be really interested to see where they go with this. Partly because it's a delicate matter to touch on any present tense news items, because certainly, like, for example, if it's paid for by Fox News, you could take a conservative bent or whatever, but in such a polarizing issue of AI and such a polarizing issue as OpenAI, if you reminded me of the story of that hiring or firing and rehiring, then I would tell you, oh yeah, you're just going to do the "Oh Captain, My Captain" scene from Dead Poets Society, right? Where
right.
But when I say that in the context of the present tense complicated feelings people have about OpenAI, it gets really confusing, which maybe is the point. I mean, when the social network came out, it felt like Facebook was too present tense for that to work, but it did.
This is this generation's Pirates of Silicon Valley.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah. That was the
Michael
made for
Hall
TV.
played Bill Gates, and who played Jobs in that? He is also famous, and I'm going to hate myself for not remembering, but it was an HBO production, which is analogous in some ways to Amazon MGM, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, it was
Noah Weil, people are saying.
Noah Wiley. Yeah. Noah Wiley played Steve Jobs, and it was not as of the moment as this, which only happened 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's definitely as much a part of the zeitgeist as that was at the time.
Yep. And I suspect that this trend is only going to happen faster and faster as affordable tools make it possible to make movies about things instantly.
We're dodging the most important question, though, Brian. Does Andrew Garfield look like Sam Altman?
Also, what does a caricature of Sam Altman's affect read as on there? It'll be interesting.
So much there. The Legend of Zelda live action movie has been moved. It will no longer be May 7th, 2027. It will now be May 7th, 2027. Sony and Nintendo had originally set it for March 2027. So just moving a few months. Apparently because Shigeru Miyamoto, who helped develop Zelda, said it needed more production time. So they bumped it a few months.
Yeah. Turns out when God says, let it cook a couple more months, you do it.
I don't know why this news caused it, but I saw a bunch of memes about like, why can't they cast a real Hyrulean?
I think that's more about the kind of pregnant cultural shift.
Yeah, for sure. And then Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune are going to stream next day on both Hulu, including in Disney Plus, and Peacock starting in September. Library shows will be available as well. It's the first streaming deal for in-season versions of Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune. There have been library versions available, but this is the first time you're going to be able to watch it the next day after it airs.
Man, I would take a college course on why those two are just perfectly paired with each other. Something about the brain chemistry of the randomness and whether you feel smart in a linguistic or other kind of way. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that brings us to the buried treasure.
Most people want to know why they suddenly got rich.
Buried treasure.
Buried Treasure, of course, the segment of the show where we tell you what we've been watching so that you can think about maybe whether you want to watch it or not. Brian, what have we been watching?
Tom, I got that rarest of treats when something wonderful hits you right upside the head when you didn't expect it.
Ooh, really?
Yeah. I think I had a couple hours free. Oh, I had time to kill. I think I worked too late on Friday and as a result had time hanging out here. And so me and the missus, I opened up Hulu and there was the animated movie Predator, Killer of Killers. It is, and then I'm like, oh yeah, let's see what the reviews are. And it's like 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. The pull quote was every Predator fan's dream. And then I see directed by Dan Trachtenberg. And it delivered so hard. It was so great. So, I was a little bit worried going into it because it was animated, it's a cartoon. But there is a density to the storytelling with that rubbery kind of cartoon world effect. Two things get to happen. First of all, Predator is already kind of grisly, gory, severed arms and that kind of stuff. So many severed heads, Tom. There's so much cartoonish blood all over the it makes it so much better as a cartoon. Also, just you get to constantly, it's almost like a pitch meeting where it's like, you get it. One of the full short stories in the anthology, not one word of dialogue is spoken. The entire 25 minutes long. And meanwhile, you get it. You get every nuanced aspect of the dynamic of the relationship of the two principal characters. It's great. That's Predator, Killer of Killers. It's on Hulu.
Fantastic. Well, I didn't watch as much television this weekend, Brian, because I was at the ballet.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I mean, hooray.
Yes. My 4 and 8 year olds.
Your 4 and 8-year-olds.
No, my 4-year-old niece had her ballet recital, so we were traveling and we went up there to see them. Spent a lot of time hanging out with the nieces, of course, all that kind of stuff. And we didn't watch a lot of TV with them, interestingly enough, which in the past we would have.
Did you experience the same thing I experienced, where it's like the world of ballet, like they've cracked the code and they figured out what parents want, and the production I went to was on rails. They moved a lot of recitals through very quickly. Was that how it was for you?
Yes, very much so. Yeah, they're like, we know what you want. You want to see your kid look cute with the other kids, then see your kid get highlighted, then on to the next class.
Yep.
That was very much it. But one thing I did want to note is that we generally watch the Dodgers and the Cardinals baseball in our house because my wife's a Dodgers fan, I'm a Cardinals fan, and the Dodgers were Friday night baseball a couple weekends ago, Friday night, and we watched that because that's how you had to watch the Dodger game that night. And it's the first time in a while that I'd watched the MLB Friday night baseball game, and I have to say, I really enjoyed it. They've really hit their stride with the broadcast crew. Their on-screen graphics are innovative and useful and giving you things that you don't always know. And the broadcast crew is now taking those into account and talking to them, putting them in context for you. So, not that it was bad at launch, but I remember at launch watching it and going like, I don't know what's special about this. And I feel like they really have improved on baseball coverage at Apple TV. So good on them.
Right on.
Amos was on our Daily Tech News Show live stream today, was talking about NASCAR on Amazon Prime. So we would be remiss if we didn't let Cordkillers get a little window into that as well. Right, Amos?
That's exactly what I was thinking. I've railed on this show before about NASCAR being kind of all over the place and not having a cohesive viewing experience online, especially with all the TV deals and things like that. Even when you do get to see it online, it's often just kind of jank. Like you can tell the announcers aren't at the track. They're watching the same live stream you're watching. It's been pretty awful at some points. NASCAR has had their primary races, their Sprint Cup races on. Is it still Sprint Cup? Oof. It's been Winston Cup, Sprint Cup. It's been, I don't even know. Their prime races have been on Amazon Prime the last 2 weeks. The Coca-Cola 600 and the races last weekend in Michigan. Gotta say, of all the online presentations, these have been my favorite. The fact they went out of the way not to have any full screen.
No full screen ads during green flag racing is what Amos was trying to say when his internet froze.
Oh, got it.
There we go. Yes.
And then he froze again as soon as he confirmed
he took a moment to collect his next thought, which is going to be extraordinary.
So if they did full screen ads, they did it during either the yellow flag, that was really brief, or during the red flag that happened when there was no racing at all. And even during the yellow flag, they didn't cover up any pit stops. It was just when the cars were going around the track, in line. There's no action happened to passing or anything else. The announcers, they actually have an active racer, which is something new. One of the announcers is still actively taking part in the series, even though he's not a full-time driver. He's actively driving. They've got Dale Jr., which is possibly one of the most. His father was probably the most famous and most liked driver of all time in NASCAR, and he carried that torch for the entire time he was in the series. The graphics have been on point. And as I was telling Tom earlier, you didn't have to either watch the live action or wait until the race is over to rewatch it later. You could actually jump in the middle of the race and choose to watch it from the beginning, and it would just continue the stream from there, which not every online service has done.
MLB Friday Night does that too, as a matter of fact. It gives you the option. Do you want to start at the beginning or do you want to join in progress?
Do you end up being able to skip all of the commercial breaks and get all the way caught up in real time?
Little 10-second forward thing. Yep.
That's fun.
Yeah. It's the best of the online experiences.
Hold on. You know, that's one thing I don't think we've talked / speculated, worried about is ESPN right now. I wonder what moving to streaming services means in terms of, we always think in terms of DVR-like experience, but we don't talk a lot about the unskippable ads that can be enforced on streaming services.
I've found ESPN to be one of the more forgiving. NBC is the worst. NBC, you join anything, it plays an ad. So you never get into the live game until 15 seconds or longer after you run their pre-roll ad. But ESPN is pretty good about like, hey, you're paying for this service. We're going to throw you into the game. You'll see the ads eventually.
Yeah.
Overall, this gives me a lot of hope that we will eventually figure out live sports on TV. Like this has been, because NASCAR never stops really. So for them to be able to pull it off and have a good show the way they're doing, and this is only their second race this last weekend. The Coca-Cola 600 weekend previous was their first time doing NASCAR on Amazon Prime, and it really came off without a hitch. Like it's really good.
Fantastic. So, well, there you go. Killer of Killers on Hulu, you said, right?
Yes.
MLB Friday Night on Apple TV Plus and NASCAR on Amazon Prime. If you got something we should be on the lookout for, email it to us, cordkillers@gmail.com. Unless you'd like to talk to us face to face.
Well, I mean, in order to do that, you'd have to find us both in the same place at the same time, and you'd have to know where that place is, and you'd have to have permission to be there. Luckily, all of that can happen if you head on over to bestnewsever.com.
That's right. Best New Sever. Not the old Sever, the new Sever.
Well, and not just a new Sever, the best new Sever.
That's right. Not any old new Sever. Bestnewsever.com takes you right to the page on the Modern Rogue where you can sign up for a workshop coming up in 17 days.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So this is the part where I have to start worrying about all the logistics for all of the meals and for all of the bodies. There are exactly two slots left. If you head
That's
on
the
over,
best new Sever I've ever heard.
If you haven't heard us talking about it, basically this is unfettered access for 2.5 days to, Tom and I have been on a heck of a journey here on Cordkillers, going loud, live, and independent, breaking away from a network, doing our own thing. So the class is called Do Your Weird Thing. And some parts of it are structured, very polished presentations that I've given for 3-letter government agencies and at hacker conventions and for branding experts. Whatever your weird thing is, whether you think you have an idea that you want to take out into the world, whether you want to ramp up the operation that you have, whether you want to quit your day job and be like Tom and I, that's what we're covering for 2.5 days. It's called Do Your Weird Thing.
Go check it out, bestnewsever.com. And now I will keep my promise.
Now.
In scanning the horizon.
Oh.
Send a scanning to abort.
Scanning the horizon!
Brothers Discovery is following the Comcast playbook, Brian.
Which means definitely not scraping off the barnacles, the dead weight.
Well, it is a little bit different. It's interesting. So it is doing what Comcast announced it was going to do later this year, except Warner Brothers Discovery won't do it until next year. But it's going to split the company into two. One group, led by the current CEO, David Zaslav, will contain Warner Brothers Television, Warner Brothers Motion Picture Group, DC Studios, HBO, HBO Max, and the film and television libraries. What you might call the profitable parts of the business. The second company, which will be led by the current CFO, Gunnar Wiedenfels, will contain global networks. So your entertainment, your sports, your news brands. That includes CNN, TNT, Sport in the US, and Discovery. Free-to-air channels across Europe, and Discovery Plus streaming and Bleacher Report streaming. You still might call these the profitability challenged parts of the business. No word on what the two companies will be called or how the brand deals will work between the two companies. I'm sure they're still going to have CNN and Discovery stuff on HBO Max. Comcast previously announced a similar plan for splitting out the cable networks from the studios and streaming to take effect by the end of this year. And by the way, if you didn't hear, it's not called SpinCo anymore. That was just a temporary name. We already knew that. It's going to be called Versant.
I was really pulling for SpinCo to become the actual name.
To just stay. I know.
Yeah.
I know. That's the buried lead here that Comcast is calling it Versant. But yeah, I thought it was interesting that Warner Brothers is putting what is a profitable streaming service, Discovery Plus, and the Bleacher Report streaming service into the spin out. Because my thinking with Comcast is you want to spin out those cable companies and let them figure out how to make as much money out of them as you can while cable still exists. And eventually it'll go away and then you can sell it for parts or remerge it back into Comcast. This implies that they considered Discovery and the Bleacher Report content. So not the sports. The sports is in a different area, but the Bleacher Report content to be something that could be spun out. Or I guess possibly they're like, that'll help fund this part so it doesn't die too soon and we can keep it going long enough. I'm not sure. It feels a little more like this is meant to divide the company permanently, whereas Comcast felt like a temporary thing to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is so far out. Now, keep in mind, the irony is not lost on me. I'm the guy who just made up an entire plot line for Alien Earth. But I'm going to say this feels like too far out for me to speculate on.
This is crazy. Yeah. I'm also I'm surprised that sports networks are being included in the spin out. I don't think Comcast did that either. This is a different way of approaching it. And one of the things that I noted about NBC's spin out is NBC News stayed a part of Comcast. MSNBC, the cable news, was spun out because I'm like, oh yeah, they want to keep a news service in-house for the streaming, for Peacock. CNN looks like it's going to be totally spun out into this other company, which means they're going to license CNN content for HBO Max. But CNN is creating its own spin-out version of a streaming service, which also might be able to make some money on its own. TNT Sports getting spun out. It's slightly different than what Comcast is doing, and I'm intrigued by it.
I like the fact that naturally this sort of shines a spotlight on something that we don't talk about very often, which is lately we've been doing a lot of branding talk because that's where my head is at, and you're kind enough to join me for the ride. But branding is what happens in the public's mind, which is totally different than what happens in the shareholders' pocketbooks. So you have, there's a lot of licensing back and forth where CBS Studios, of course, famously had a lot of stuff that was not on CBS and so on.
Well, and CBS is another example in that Viacom split into Viacom and CBS for years, and then eventually they merged them back together as Paramount. And so I feel like that's kind of what Comcast is doing. They're just shielding themselves from any profitability risk with the cable companies. This could be something where they're really creating two separate companies, and one or both of them could be sold to different people. I'm guessing they call the one with the film studios and HBO Max Warner Brothers, and they call the one with Discovery and Discovery Plus Discovery. Like, it seems like the names are already there. They can just split them right in half.
Man, I'm officially swearing off speculating on what company names are going to be for a minute.
And then side note, HBO Max launching in a dozen countries in July, including Cyprus, several Baltic countries, and that brings Max, to soon be called HBO Max, to 89 total territories. Stranger Things 5's premiere date announcement broke Netflix's records for internal trailer streams. Not talking about YouTube. 250 million impressions for the announcement date trailer. That is more impressions than any similar announcement in the same time frame in the history of the platform.
Now, so there's already firm disagreement among various companies about what the word view means.
Sure.
YouTube is the closest thing to a fair shake in that there's, some percentage or seconds threshold, and now it's a view or whatever. Impressions can be anything from like, I don't know, they're like billboards or cigarette ads at baseball games.
Does it matter? This is internal to Netflix, and it's apples to apples. Basically, and Netflix saying the one that got the most of however we count it is the Stranger Things one.
Yes. Well, and I guess headline: Stranger Things is Netflix's most popular thing. I believe that one. I'm now suddenly interested in what it takes to qualify as an impression. I realize
I think
that's
what
something
it takes to qualify for this record is Netflix made every single one of their subscribers watch this with an autoplay.
Ding, ding, ding. That's where I'm going. Is
Yeah.
it because it could be that they just ran it harder than then it's not a reflection of anything. It's like we forced the most people to watch this ad. And
Or
it's like
it could be, and this is where your definition would make a difference. Like fewer people clicked away to something else. More people were forced to start it and kept watching it. Depends on how you define impression.
you correctly figured out the Brian Brushwood shadow game. Where's the VIG?
European public broadcasters are banding together to get high-end dramas made. So in other words, instead of individual countries' public broadcasters all making their own shows, they are teaming up to finance them. The drama collectives are multiple. It's not all the European broadcasters in one. There's one called the Alliance. There's one called the Nordic 12. There's one called New 8. But it is an interesting way that these public broadcasters are figuring out how to compete with the bigger budgets for TV shows out there.
Yeah, I love it. And I think that this makes a lot of sense, especially in a increasingly multiculturally literate planet Earth, where it used to be like when we were children, anything on PBS was from the exotic lands of England, and now we're accustomed to watching Korea dramas and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're seeing Netflix announcing billions of dollars going into Spanish language programs in Europe. You're seeing them, invest in content in France, in Italy, so they are going head to head for the dollars of people who make television in Europe. And so this is a reasonable way to respond and say, you know what, we still want to bring high dollar, good quality content to the public broadcasters as well. Apple's WWDC always has an announcement about Apple TV, specifically about tvOS. And it never seems like it's really worth us talking about, but I feel remiss if we don't acknowledge it. So Apple's got a new design called Liquid Glass. It's got some transparency effects and stuff. That's going to come to tvOS. The TV and movie show posters in the TV app will be vertical, so they'll take up less space. You can have profiles show up when you wake the machine so that you can pick your profile instead of having to go up and choose it and do the drop down. App makers can link your login to an Apple account. That way, if you've logged into, say, Hulu on your Apple iPhone, you wouldn't have to re-log in as long as you're on the same Apple account on your Apple TV. And you can use iPhones as wireless mics on Apple Music's karaoke feature.
That's interesting. That's too far in the technological weeds. I know.
Finally an interesting thing they announced.
No. Well, I mean,
that's kind of where I'm at. Anyway.
I mean, again, what's funny is part of the reason that we don't often mention it is like the headline reduces to Apple continues to be an excellent steward with high quality products.
Yeah.
But in this case, that is the most interesting, technologically novel thing that I was surprised by. But
Android people
Apple
can't
TV,
sing apparently, though. Only iPhones can compete with this.
Yeah, that's right. Although what would be great is to have any phone work, but only iPhones get the auto tune feature.
Yeah, they just kind of shift everyone on an Android like off key slightly.
It would be the equivalent of like that's how you could always spot the bad guy in an Apple TV Plus dramas because they have the non-Apple phone.
The latest Roku Plus series TVs are getting Smart Picture Max. That's a feature that automatically adjusts your TV's picture setting. They're also getting mini LED backlighting, a remote finder button on the back of the TV, and a built-in cable management system. If you're like, wait, didn't Roku already have that? Yes, on its high-end Pro series, but not on the Plus series. So now the Plus series gets a bunch of the Pro series features. The new Pro series gets the next generation of Smart Picture Max, so it's better. 75% increase in dynamic contrast thanks to re-engineered mini LED backlighting and hands-free voice control, so you don't need to use the remote to do the voice. They also upgraded some things on the remote as well. Roku's expanded Select Series offerings available from 24 to 85 inches, starting at $130, while the Plus and Pro series available in 55, 65, and 75-inch options.
Man, it's been a minute since when's the last time you bought a TV, Tom?
When is the last time we bought a TV? Eileen bought a TV in 2020 to put in her office, I think.
Yeah, like that 5 year. I think it was like 7 years was the last time I bought one. And it was just because we needed. Yeah, probably around then because we were building out HQ.
Yeah,
it's astonishing how much more affordable, gigantic, gorgeous displays I've got.
No, I know that's the least expensive Roku TV you can get. And by the way, if you didn't catch it, these are not Roku OS TVs. These are Roku TVs. These are TVs with the Roku brand on them. They're obviously made by somebody else, but they're not a TCL or Samsung or something else with Roku operating system.
Yeah.
Finally, a little bookkeeping. Disney wrote one more check to Comcast for $438.7 million, which finally settles the purchase of its stake in Hulu. Like a year and a half after they agreed, that officially now gives Disney whole ownership of Hulu. Didn't seem to be slowing the integration of Hulu into Disney Plus, but now it's all on the books, so nothing stands in their way. They own the whole thing.
But there still remains a legitimate reason that Hulu has to exist outside of Disney Plus. Like there was some programming or something. Like I've grown rather comfortable with Hulu being just one of the pillars of the Disney Plus experience. And in fact, I get annoyed because there's one or two devices that aren't signed into Hulu. In fact, when I watched Predator, Killer of Killers, it loaded up Hulu and it was just like log in. I was like, why do you hate me, world? How unfair. Echo device, open Disney Plus. Oh, whew, finally back home.
When I went to watch 24 for full experience, it tried to open Hulu, which I hadn't logged into. So I was like, well, I'm not logging in. I just went over to Disney Plus.
Oh, yeah. You know what? That happened again today. That's exactly what happened to me as well.
Yeah. So anyway, there you go, folks. If you were worried, which none of you were, but now you know that's all taken care of. Let's move on to the chatter.
You've got mail.
Lots of good emails from folks this week. Thank you so much for these. Russell writes, hi, Brian, Tom, and Amos. Really enjoyed the discussion about the hero's journey and different narrative structures. Recently saw Life of Chuck, which has a really interesting storytelling structure. The story is told in 3 acts in reverse. It is a fascinating story and a well-made movie as well. You don't really know exactly where it's going, but it really holds your interest. It may be a variation of the hero's journey, but done in a different way. It's based on a short story by Stephen King, which I now want to read. Worth a look. Thanks as always for your fun, thoughtful content like the show has evolved over the last year or so. Russell.
Oh, that's wonderful. Russell, thank you very much. I really appreciate what appears to be a very carefully crafted email to pique our interest, but
in
not
Life of Chuck.
Tell us vital aspects to it.
Yeah, that's like a well-constructed trailer, Russell. Thank you very much. That's very good. Andrew writes, I wanted to second Tracked as a recommendation, TRAKT, which we talked about last week. You can also sync your Plex library and watch history to it. When I watch a show on Plex, it automatically gets marked as watched on Tracked. When I add something to my Plex library, it gets marked as being owned on Tracked. It's a great way to audit for anything missing in your Plex library. One pedantic note, Tracked actually uses themoviedb.org for most of their data. Originally, it was the tvdb.com data, but they've been slowly switching where they pull their data from.
Oh, man, that has to be the single most fun website to say on the planet, the TVDB.
The TVDB, originally, but not anymore. Now it's the MovieDB. So there you go. Hello, Cordkillers, says Ben in O'Fallon, Illinois. We recently moved from dusty West Texas to the Metro East. It's my homeland. And I wanted to share our cord resurrecting. Spectrum seemed to be our only option for high-speed internet, and their gigabit plan is $70. They offered a TV package for another $100, but adding TV also dropped the internet plan to only $40. The TV plan included lots of streaming services, including Disney Plus, which we'd have anyway for our daughter, and the cloud DVR would mean we likely wouldn't need Hulu. We'd need ESPN and FanDuel Sports Midwest for Cardinals baseball at least, so in the end, this seemed pretty comparable. That's at least our deal for the next 2 years, so we'll see what happens when we cancel. Thanks for all you do.
Yep. So I guess in there, it sounds like it was a 2-year contract. Gentle reminder that that our big beef when we started this show was not about restrictive cable, the content. It was the contracts that drove us nuts. Those were the chords that we wanted to kill.
Yeah, and it makes sense. Although it was interesting, he's like, the cloud DVR would mean we likely wouldn't need Hulu, but you're getting it in Disney Plus because he's getting Disney Plus. So
that's true. Yeah.
Well, no, I guess you're only getting some of Hulu and Disney Plus if you don't subscribe to Hulu in the bundle.
Well, and also Hulu has traditionally positioned itself as essentially being you don't need a DVR, but if you have a DVR, then conversely, you theoretically wouldn't
there are
need
shows
Hulu.
on Hulu that you cannot get on FX or other networks. Like A Handmaid's Tale is one example that comes to mind. But yeah, if you're not interested in those, everything else is something that you could get on the TV. And then you're going to want to watch Cardinals baseball on FanDuel Sports Midwest when they're out of town. Otherwise, just take a bi-state bus from O'Fallon over to Bush and watch it in person. Hello, Brian and Tom. As I was listening to your program this week, I had just returned from the grocery store where I had, for the first time in my life, purchased RC Cola. To be precise, it was RC Cola Zero, the very same beverage you happen to be discussing on the episode. Over the years, Brian has mentioned RC Cola quite a few times, usually as the perennial third option, not Coke or Pepsi. Well, curiosity finally got the better of me. Brian, RC Cola is disgusting. Yuck. Why would you ever use it in one of your hypothetical examples? This is a one and done experience for me. Never again. It's Coke Zero all the way. Respectfully, Dr. Matthew from North Aurora, Illinois. Well, what do you expect from someone in the Chicago suburbs?
Dr. Matthew, I'm glad that is literally the reason that RC Cola is always the Bobo third option. Although if you want we can get into all that again. But yes, I'm glad that you experienced it. Yes, RC Cola was always kind of famously inferior. As a matter of fact, that was the joke on The Simpsons when Homer becomes a assistant to the stars. He's trying to rat out their garbage, and he says, "Oh, simple Coke or Pepsi isn't good enough for these celebrities. They have Royal Crown soda."
Well, I loved that we got a downstater and a Chicago suburbs person in the same show here. It made me feel very welcome. Everyone go drink a Vess. Finally, Danny wrote, actually, Danny and Brandon both have suggestions for the full experience. Danny said, now that you've experienced with new series on full like Andor, I thought I'd pitch Star Trek Lower Decks. I know you're both already big fans, but it might be especially interesting for full considering how it was originally pitched versus what we got. I remember someone criticizing the first few episodes by saying if it's supposed to be a Star Trek comedy, why isn't it funny? But it got me thinking the team behind the show was experienced and incredibly talented, so comedy probably wasn't the primary goal. I thought they were clearly trying to make new Star Trek with new characters to love, just with mostly fun plots compared to the other series. As the show went on and the team got more creative freedom, this became clear, and I think Full could highlight that perfectly.
Yeah, Danny, I think your experience exactly mirrored ours. I think where we ended up on our discussions was that it probably was not the Lower Decks team that wanted it pitched that way, marketing it as a comedy. It's probably more what somebody in PR felt like they could sell to the public.
I don't know what Brian was going to say there.
But it was amazing, whatever it was. You should have heard it. It moved mountains, Tom.
Yeah, good. I'm glad to hear it. And I 100% agree with everything you said. I believe after Andor that I support a multi-year pad between having watched a full series and doing the full experience. I think I need time for it to fade in my memory. Lower Decks is getting close. It's been a year, so I'm not against it, but I feel like I need time to forget what it was like for me to do a full experience. How are you feeling about that?
I think it'll be a long time. I think it'll be a fair bit before I want to test the recency bias theory again. This is why we're scientists, Tom, is that we're testing all of the aspects, not only the art itself, but also what it's like for humans to re-experience it. And I feel like we got robust data. We need to give it time.
Yeah. Brandon suggests The Magicians, based on the Lev Grossman novels. He says, while I have seen the entire series and I think it is a great fantasy show, I just tried the full experience and I'd love to hear your impressions of that method of watching it. I love that he did full experience, the home version. That's amazing. Please, more people try it and let us know. This is amazing. Brandon said, for the lowest, there is a tie on IMDb between episodes 2 and 3 of season 1. I watched episode 3 because I thought giving a bit of a gap from the first episode would be more interesting.
It'd be wild would be if we diverged. New variation on the full experience. We both watched the first one. We both watched the highest rated, but then we go back and we split our parties. We split it. And then we come back.
And then reconverge. Yeah. That's science, friends.
That's science.
Yeah. Well, that is it for this show. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. And we are live on twitch.tv/Night Attack Tuesdays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Pacific. I reckon we'll talk to you next time.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.